So I wanted to bring you here, Tom. I mean, for two reasons on this stop. One is this is a fresh cut that we did last January.
Right.
And I think it's pretty representative of most of our cuts in terms of size and shape and what we planted. And then the other stop is really going to be across the road in a 45-year-old planted stand.
Okay.
So we have a cut, obviously, here. This was done in January. We have a 45-year-old planted forest that we'll walk into in a minute on the other side. We have natural regeneration down in the valley, all around a brook stream.
Right.
And on the other side of that valley, if you look up, you kind of see that brownish-looking tree. That's eastern white cedar on that lower slope. And then another white spruce stand, and then you get into the hardwood ridges all along the tops of the ridges. And that's really how the forest works here in northern New Brunswick, is typically you have softwood, the conifers like spruce trees growing in the valleys, and cedar in the wetter areas, and then the hardwood up on top of the ridges where the soils are very rich.
When you talk about sustainability with Irving, what does that mean?
Well, I think sustainability with Irving goes back quite a long ways. We've been planting trees for over 50 years and managing lands for over 100 years. We have one of the oldest plantations in Canada here, the first tree planting area in a time when no one was planting trees, that this area was, wood for miles and miles and miles. So sustainability to us is really at our core, and it's about the long term. It's about being environmentally responsible, looking after the forest, looking after water, looking after wildlife. It's about being socially responsible, working with the communities where we live and work, and it's about being economically responsible both to ourselves as a company, obviously, and to our customers by providing them a good product.
What about certification? You're certified under the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, SFI, correct?
Yes.
Why is that certification important to the company?
Well, the certification, really what the certification stands for us is really a way of saying to the end customer, don't take our word for it that we're doing a good job. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't have the chance to come out here and walk around and see what we're doing and understand it, and so you get a certification label. In Canada we have SFI, and in our Maine lands we have FSC and SFI, to say to the consumer, look, we are managing to a responsible standard, and a third-party body comes and audits us fairly frequently to ensure and to make sure that we're continually improving that process. Everybody all set?
Yeah, so where are we now?
Okay, so we're just across the street from where we were just standing.
Right.
This is a 45-year-old planted stand here, and this is really what that site across the street is going to look like in about 45 years. Okay. And what's interesting here to me is that, back in 1967 when this was reforested, it was reforested really primarily to one species, and at the time those were the decisions that were made. Today it's quite different how we do that. But what's interesting here now is that you have really a range of species and multiple tree species growing in this area, okay, which is not like this idea of a uniform tree species prevalent. And what you're seeing is a bunch of white spruce growing. We see red spruce growing. We have balsam fir growing, which is obviously a natural occurring species. And then several hardwood species growing, like for example, you can't see it today, but this here is sugar maple is growing. And there's yellow birch growing in the understory, and white birch growing, and red maple all growing in the understory, all on this acre. And to be quite honest with you, I think this is a good looking forest. On top of that, this has been select cut twice in the last 20 years.
But how much of that is going on everywhere else in the province? Because we see, and we saw, massive hectares and hectares of what looked like nothing but tree farms. Identical looking trees, all planted perfectly in a row. Nothing like this, actually. It looks nothing like this.
I can understand that people would see that way, certainly when you see a younger plantation. They tend to be very dense, they're not thinned out, and of course most conifers tend to look the same, but it's actually not the case. We plant up to 4 to 6 tree species in a given block. We were the first company in the world to order a seeding machine that could put multiple tree seeds, different species of tree seeds, in a container. And so we'll plant on any given block, depending on where we are in the province. We will cater the trees that we put in the ground to that specific site. It could be a mix of white spruce, red spruce, and white pine. In the lower lying areas, we plant black spruce, some white pine, and some cedar. We mix it up depending on where we're sitting. Up here in the north, where we are today, the forests up here, we typically get our predominantly white spruce forests with a component of balsam fir. And we do that. Down further south, you're going to see a lot more red spruce with white pine mixed in, which are typical Acadian species.
But for the people who argue that the kind of practices beyond what we're seeing here are eradicating, or at least changing the nature of this unique, and this is apparently a unique forest, I understand, the forest in New Brunswick, the maritime Acadian forest is unique, that it's not the same as it was, and some of these practices have changed it permanently. You don't agree?
No, not really, to be honest with you. The Acadian forest is a complex set of species types that grow in the kind of a micro-site area all through the forest. It's always been a quilt work of species defined primarily by tree species like red spruce and white pine, yellow birch and sugar maple. And in fact, we're managing for all of those species.
Are they softwoods or hardwoods?
Well, the white spruce, balsam fir, white pine, typically we call them softwoods or conifers, and then the sugar maple and yellow birch, those are hardwoods or deciduous trees. So I mean, here you can see a stump that was probably from the original harvest, here back in 1965. Right. And then this here was probably after what we call the second thinning. So this would have been one of the planted trees that we came in, or a natural tree that grew up and thinned out. Okay. So I mean, like I mentioned, this has been select cut twice already in its life, and we still have, you know, a very good looking, healthy forest here.
Right about here, Tom.
Okay. I'm just going to walk in and hit the same spot approximately where we were before.
Yeah. Sure.
Thanks, guys. Okay.
Yeah, and then of course you have all kinds of natural regeneration. You know, you've got the balsam fir, which is all coming up here. We've got some natural spruces. You can see again this red maple, which is growing here, sugar maple, which is growing over there. So all kinds of things going on in here. There's a big, actually I think there's a big moose run, big moose trail that walks right up through there. Wow. Yeah.
I guess all the birds have gone south. I don't hear anything.
No, the birds will come out a little bit later on when it warms up. Yeah. I mean, what do you think?
You know, I'm not a tree guy, a forest guy. I can't, you know, I don't know. I guess
you guys gonna wander in the back there somewhere or something?
Yeah, sure. We'll go on. Were you going to show me something in here?
So, do you think this looks like a nice forest, though? I mean, personally?
This does, sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm not that I'm an expert on forests, but yeah, it's ferns and trees and shrubbery and things like that. Yeah. It looks nice, but I can't tell necessarily if it's a good thing or a bad thing. I guess it's, you know, I don't know. I can't weigh in stuff that's not my expertise, if you know what I mean. But it looks nice, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. Do you know how to count the age of a tree?
Nope.
You want to learn?
All right, sure.
Okay. So, conifer trees make it very easy. Okay, and basically every year they start out here. You can always find that bump with that ring of branches. It's kind of a ring of branches around it. Okay, and then this branch is called the leader, and it's grown. This tree in this growing season has grown from here. Sorry, I'm looking right into the sun. To here. So that's the growth of this tree this year, and you can see that was last year. And that right there, from my finger to there, is the year before, and probably down somewhere right down to the bottom is the year before that. So that's a 5-year-old. That's a 5-year-old tree, and you can count them very easily. Of course, when they get bigger, it's a little bit more difficult when you're looking up 60 feet.
Right.
Yeah, but that's how you can tell the age of a softwood tree. Yeah. And it's the same all the way through. You know, you can see here's a natural balsam fir that's seeded in, and he'll grow up right alongside some of these planted spruce, white pine.
The white pine's hardwood, correct?
No, the white pine is a softwood.
Too, right?
Yeah, and white pine goes a lot into door frames and window casings.
Right, okay.
It's an appearance grade type wood.
Someone said to me that it was the tree that built Canada because it was so prominently used in building ships and things like that.
White pine was typically used for masts. They cut it down. They're very tall, very straight. They cut them down and shipped them over to Europe for masts.
Right.
Yeah, and that was the primary reason for the harvest. It's a very soft and workable wood.
Now, is there any hardwood in here?
Sure, there is hardwood here. You've got a whole cluster, a clump of red maple that's coming up. All these little, and you can see like that one there. There's deer browse on it, so the deer have been browsing this maple, and you can tell by the little tips. I'll just break that off for you. You see that little gray tip there,
Yeah.
kind of frayed, and that's where the deer have just plucked the bud right off. So they're browsing here.
Okay.